Thank you for joining us this morning. And Suzanne, I'm going to begin with you. By the way, you have a lovely Salesforce lounge, and I love the slogans about sustainability and equality in your windows. It's really
and oceans and forests.
And oceans and forests, and I know you have trees on your mind, but I'm going to come back to that in a minute. But you've said before, tech companies are not good or bad. It's what we do with our innovation that matters. So can you give me one concrete example of how you're using technology to boost sustainability?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think that there's, in the era of the tech lash, technology companies grew so fast. There was a lot of unintended consequences, I think, with some of those technologies. And Salesforce has been, I think, really sort of out in front of supporting the NGO sector, especially ever since the very beginning of our company. We have 45,000 nonprofits using our technology today. So I think we've learned a lot. We've been able to stay out of the fray a bit because of our sort of deep connection and partnership with the NGO sector to begin with. But I'll just give you sort of a fun recent example. The company has done about $1 billion in AI acquisitions over the last 2 years. And because of the sort of confluence of big data and visualization, we've been able to work with a lot of really interesting scientists with their data sets. And there's a great, speaking of oceans and trees and the lodge across the street, I was last night at an event with the Oceans Institute, Benioff Oceans Institute, an incredible professor out of UC Santa Barbara, who worked with some of our data scientists because there was a problem in Southern California of the increase in great white sharks. And there's a whole bunch of reasons, speculation on why that is. Is it climate change? Is they were protected species in California? Right. But they're coming closer to shore, and particularly the juvenile males. And so it was becoming sort of a problem for the shop owners and the lifeguards and summer camps in particular. Yes. So we were able to work with our data scientists through drone technology to survey a 10-mile stretch of beach in Santa Barbara. And we did it over the course of a number of weeks so that we really had sort of large data sets distinguishing what is a great white versus a leopard shark versus a floating piece of kelp that looks like a shark versus a person on a paddleboard. Really teaching the drone how to sort of recognize what is a great white shark. And we were recently an executive offsite. It was in August, so summer camps were, in high swing. Yes. And they were able to detect using our artificial intelligence through Einstein Analytics, which is Salesforce's analytics platform, the coming of a great white shark sort of right up into very close into a summer camp beach where it was a surf camp for kids.
Wow.
And they could see it before the lifeguards did because we had...
So you did an early warning.
Yeah, we got an early warning system. So I think that was so they quickly sort of called the lifeguard and pulled all the kids off the camp. Right. And we were able to sort of watch it, monitor it, go by. So just an interesting sort of recent example on how to use AI and analytics through big data.
Yeah, no, that's a great example. Ezgi, I want to turn to you next. And, given AB InBev is the world's largest brewer, you rely extensively on natural ingredients. Water is a major ingredient in beer. So how you work with natural ingredients can really move the needle for the planet, right? So you have ambitious sustainability goals for 2025, which includes water stewardship, smart agriculture, circular packaging. How are you doing? You've got 5 years to go with your self-imposed deadline of 2025.
Yes.
What's going on? How are you doing?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm really excited to join the conversation. So AB InBev, we operate in 50 countries around the world, sell our products in over 100. But I think what makes us really special is that we're a truly global, local company. We buy, make, and sell over 90% of our products locally. So that gives us a lot of reasons to invest in healthy environments and thriving communities because we are part of the community and we're part of the local heritage in many markets where we operate. That said, when you think about sustainability in our company, because we rely so much on natural ingredients, sustainability becomes our business. So the key priorities that we focus on are water, agriculture, circular packaging, and climate action, and looking into the impacts of climate action across our supply chain and operations, and trying to mitigate some of the risks and also future-proof the company. So as we're making progress towards our 2025 sustainability goals, we know we're going to get there, but we know that it's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be through what I would call traditional types of partnerships or business models where we've operated in, or how we operated before. So when we set our public commitments, and I've got an incredible team of teams around the world, I work very closely with different functions across procurement, supply, R&D, corporate affairs, marketing. We sat down and we realized we don't know how to get to 100% of our public commitments. So how do we close the gap? And around the same time, UN came out with a study which I believe stated that to hit the SDGs, we're going to need $5 to $7 trillion in innovation. Mm-hmm. So we thought, well, what better idea than to start looking for those innovative partnerships, startups, and new solutions so that we can close the gap on some of our challenges that we're facing and that we're sharing with our communities and our supply chain. So we launched our 100+ Sustainability Accelerator last year, yes. Which has been a fantastic program. We just graduated our first cohort. We had 21 companies. Out of those, about 2/3 of them we signed commercial contracts with, to kind of fold them under our supply chain so that we can start scaling them up very quickly and bring those innovative solutions to our operations and supply chain. Again, the idea here is we don't have all the answers. We're looking for new partnerships, and using our scale and reach, we can actually accelerate change.
That's fascinating. Now, we've talked so much about climate change this whole week in Davos and saving the planet. Of course, the one thing we're all thinking about are the fires in Australia. And what role can technology play in preventing that from happening? Is there a big role for technology so that we make sure that we don't see a repeat of that?
I think absolutely. I mean, if you look at technologies like some of the Google Earth technologies or Planet Labs that are doing real-time satellite monitoring, they can often see fires well in advance of some of the federal agencies. I think as it relates to the sort of innovation around just general technology and climate change, it sort of made me think, and one of the things I was talking yesterday to your team about was the overall need to reduce emissions globally. Yes. Yeah. And you'll hear a lot about that at Davos in the context of stakeholder capitalism, with Christiana Figueres with Mission 2020, and we have to bring emissions down significantly. This is the decade to do it. So. One of the things that we've been doing is, like you, we made supplier commitments to get to a 1.5 degree science target, 60% of our suppliers, and then we realized, well, we should really help them get there. And so we built a tool called Sustainability Cloud on the Salesforce platform, which is sort of a carbon accounting system. And it's really exciting for us because it sort of took us massive set of spreadsheets that most sustainability offices use and boiled them down into a set of APIs that we integrate with some of the energy providers with as well. And it's gone from like a 6-month period of collecting reporting data into about a 5-week period. And we built it with Ernst & Young, so it's investor-grade auditable data. Right. And something that we just went GA with last week. So it's just another sort of example on how I think you can use technology for good. Disintermediate a little bit from your question about the fires, which is more sort of satellite technology, not really our sweet spot. Okay. With the exception of what I just talked about, sort of with the drone technology and how we're bringing that into that as well.
Ezgi, I want to go back to talking about natural resources and tell us a little bit more about your water stewardship program. And also, I know you've recently signed a solar deal in Europe. Yes. And a lot of your beer bottles in 5 years will be made in a renewable refinery. So, so water is, the way we think about it is water is our greatest risk. As a company, no water, no beer. And when we set our... We don't want that. When we set our public commitment is to have 100% of our communities in high-stress areas to have measurably improved water availability and quality. So we're really taking an outward-in approach and thinking about
water stress, not just in our own operations, but in that catchment area or in that watershed. And this is not something new for us. Along with many of our peers, we've been looking into protecting watersheds. We've been investing in long-term restorations, conservation activities. We've been partnering with NGOs like World Wildlife Fund and the Nature Conservancy. But the biggest question in our minds always was, we've been investing in this watershed for 5 years or 10 years, but can we credibly claim that the risk is lower now for us or for the communities, or that this watershed is healthier now than it was 5 years ago? So we wanted to put that accountability on ourselves and also on our partners, and that's why we included the word measurably improve in our public commitment. And it's a subtle, maybe nuance, but it makes a huge difference, because now as we're thinking about these high stress areas around the world, we're really looking into what are those context-based metrics, who are the key water users in the area, and how do we really look into what certain KPIs we have to track over time, we have to monitor, and we have to invest in different solutions so that we can move the needle in those communities. So for us, water is a big risk, but it also allows us to be very innovative in how we think about this. And when we were, again, crafting the gold language and the North Star, we invited our partners to be part of that co-designing, and they were really excited. They were really happy that we were there, challenging ourselves, challenging them to really think about, what's the outcome here, and how do we make sure that we are investing in such a way that we can see the ROI, not just for ourselves, but for our communities as well. So that's the water part. The renewables piece is really exciting. So back in 2017, we announced that we wanted to purchase 100% of our electricity volume from renewables by 2025. So that's in 8 years. We're trying to convert 6 terawatt hours of electricity into renewables. The way we do it is different than many of our peers out there. Because we operate locally in 40 plus countries around the world, we really wanted to bring that additional capacity to the market. So instead of investing in existing assets or offsetting somewhere and claiming that now we're renewable in another country, we said no, we're actually going to do this the hard way. I always remember how Budweiser talks about brewed the hard way, right? We thought, we're going to do this the hard way because it's the right way. And converting 6 terawatt hours of electricity is likely going to make us the largest corporate purchaser of renewables if we can get there on time. But we will also bring additional capacity. So our deal in Mexico a couple of years ago with Iberdrola, for example, increased the renewable capacity of the whole country by 5%. So again, it gives you a sense of our size and scale in these markets. And if we can work with the governments to create enabling policies, if we can work with our suppliers to ensure that there is a competitive marketplace, we can really go and do this around the world. And our most recent deal is a pan-European deal with 2 solar farms that are going to be constructed in Spain, and it's going to cover 12 countries in Europe, and we're really excited about that. But we also have had deals across Argentina, Brazil, U.S., Mexico, Australia, India, China, and we're just moving forward wherever we can. But the tail end of that are the difficult countries where the regulatory backbone does not exist to support that system. So that's where, again, we're going to turn to our industry partners and governments to try and get exactly.
And the Bureau made at these renewable refineries will have a sticker or a mark on them so that you know that this is.
So our one of our global brands, Budweiser, is actually championing this, and they're a fantastic partner.
For, right?
Exactly. They are actually putting 100% symbol on all the bottles.
So those are the ones you have to buy.
Exactly. Yes. And we sell, if I'm not mistaken, 41 million Budweiser bottles every day around the world. So imagine if one day we can get to a point where you can start 41 million unique conversations around the world about renewables and have the consumers to really be part of the change and demanding, renewables and technology.
Now, you both work with so many partners. You both are part of very large companies with a very extensive network of partners, of people in supply chains, distribution partners, customers, clients. How do you ensure that they share the same vision or the same commitment towards sustainability that you do?
Yeah, well, in some areas we mandate it, right,
You
through
do, right.
science-based targets and
Okay.
sort of activating our supply chain. I don't mean it in a hammer sort of a way. I mean it more in a sort of shared commitment. We will hold them accountable. It's partly why we built this tool, again, because
Yes.
we needed to give some measurable sort of support as we're transitioning our own supply chain. But Salesforce uniquely has an incredible ecosystem of technology partners, systems integrators, ISVs who sort of are building apps on our platform. And that ecosystem is critical to our ability to thrive as a company. So, we do a lot of work with them through something we call Pledge 1%.
Yes, I was just going to ask
Yeah.
you about that. I mean, that's an incredible program.
It's an incredible program of which we now have about 10,000 companies
So
all
let's
around the
tell
world.
our audience what that 1% is. You can give time,
Money or equity.
Or
And
equity.
it was sort of with the model that Salesforce was founded on. We sort of called it the 1-1-1 model. 1% of your time, your product, and your equity, or in some cases profit. Equity is very powerful for a startup. In fact, a lot of the companies, for example, DocuSign, Twilio, that are Pledge 1% companies that have gone public in the last 24 months, the projection is they've generated about $1 billion in net new philanthropic dollars as a result of just putting their stock away before their public offering. So we've now been working with those 10,000 companies in over 100 countries on sustainability as well. We think it's a macro issue across sort of all three of the 1%. And for us, it's a really nice way to activate and our sort of shared values with our partner ecosystem.
So I understand what 1% when you're giving, I understand what it does to local communities, of course, the people you're giving, whether it's your time, money, or equity too. Tell me about the impact it has on your own company or the companies where people are the ones giving.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I actually believe that service is the antidote to depression. It's the sort of non-medical best thing to do to sort of lift one's spirit. I see it in kids all the time. I see it in adults. But so I think that it actually just generates joy in people and sort of lifts them out of their woe is me, whatever that looks like, and gives
Yes.
one sort of perspective.
Sure,
It
yeah.
also just creates this level of bonding and understanding that I think, especially for big companies, you don't often get. You take a team out to plant trees or to work with students. We have partnerships with schools all over the world. You also get an opportunity to meet somebody in marketing who you don't know, or finance that you don't know, or
Sure.
technology, so that then you sort of go back to work and you're able to sort of operate more effectively because you know people in other groups within the company. So, team development, I think just simply generating joy, providing perspective. It's been really powerful, and a lot of these Pledge 1% companies, for example, have been ex-Salesforce employees who, we just sort of connected with them at the level of passion and service, and then they took those values into the next company, whether they were the CEO or, an employee there.
We do something similar at Bloomberg. We call it Bob, Best of Bloomberg. And, employees can sign up and be part of several charitable activities. And sometimes we do it in office, whether at Christmas time it's wrapping gifts or doing something like that, or very often going into the community and doing something. And believe it or not, sometimes it is hard to get a slot. Because you're right, people do want to sign up and be part of this process of giving.
Right, it's a bit bigger.
Yeah, we definitely see that in our company as well, right? This sense of purpose has really taken over the young generation, and first it was the millennials, and now we see it even more so with Gen Z, and ever since...
Even the generation above.
No, I mean, even the generation above,
Yeah.
right? Because it's not really... well, it's not really... even if it's not their everyday job, right?
Yeah.
Ever since we announced what I would call our most ambitious sustainability goals yet, everywhere I go around the world, our local teams come up to my team, and they say, how can we be part of this? Mm-hmm. Can we carry shared targets on this, which are linked to their bonus? What can I do in my everyday job? What can I do in the office? What can I do, with my suppliers when I'm talking to them, or with my retailer partners? Yeah. So there's definitely this sense of purpose and young talent really wanting to work with companies that share the same values as them. And what we believe is that shared beliefs can create scalable aspirations, right? So it really creates this kind of more unified approach about where you see the company going and where the opportunities lie for all of us. Yeah.
Ezgi, I wanted to talk to you about supply chains, because obviously being the world's largest brewer, you have to rely on a massive and very complex global supply chain. How do you ensure integrity at all levels? And when I'm talking about integrity, I mean their commitment towards sustainability. I mean, it's massive, so how do you work with them?
I would say I'm lucky that sustainability is actually housed within procurement at ABI. So 3 years ago, we moved the sustainability function from corporate affairs to procurement. It allowed us to really, truly integrate into the business, gave us direct access to our supply chain. And now I report into our Chief Procurement Sustainability Officer, Tony Milliken, so he wears the double hats, right? Mm-hmm. So when we think about raw materials or packaging, all the way from sourcing strategy to contracting to supplier management, there are touch points and expectations that we set along the way in terms of sustainability, and really talk them through what are our commitments on raw materials and packaging, and more broadly across climate action and how they can be a part of that. And I think this has really given us a lot of opportunity to start thinking about co-innovating when we think about, bottle of the future or can of the future. What's that going to look like, and how can it be, how can we lower our carbon emissions? So it's been a really fascinating journey. The nice thing is our suppliers all really want to be part of this as well. So it really, most recently last year, we launched this platform called Eclipse, where we're inviting our suppliers to be part of the conversation, to learn about our aspirations so that they can also say, okay, this is where we see the opportunities. Here's our roadmap for more sustainable innovations or products out there. How do we come together and continue to build and design those? So the way you think about sourcing is now changing, right? You're actually bringing your suppliers into your design thinking. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this is a question for both of you, and then I want to open it up to the audience for some quick questions. But, this whole week we've been talking so much about climate change. There is a lot of talk about it. Are you confident that we are seeing a lot of commitment that will translate into real action? And are our goals strong enough? Are we moving fast enough?
Are we moving fast enough is the open question. Right. I think that the first thing you need to do is make sort of a declaration, right? You can declare things into existence, and I think that's what's happening in Davos.
Companies saying that these are my goals and I want to hit it by X amount of time.
That's right, yeah. and having it be front and center in Davos, and having it be of the critical risks to the world, dominate the top 5. So I think you have to sort of put it out there in a declaration of commitment and then work backwards from there. So I'm really glad to have it be pervasive this week. And I think people are moving faster, significantly faster than they were 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. I think that we've been sort of prodded and poked a little by the younger generation to say sort of this is the decade, and this is the decade.
Yeah, Greta's here making a point.
Yeah, and her colleagues, from all around the world, these young people. I was with a 14-year-old who started the U.S. climate marches last night, who's incredible, Alexandra Villaseñor. Mm-hmm. So I think that they're all, the message is coming from many domains, and I think that people are, the emissions targets are accelerating in time. 2050 is no longer sort of acceptable. Right. You're going to start to see a lot more 2030, and people are working backwards from there.
Or 2025.
Or 2025, right? Mm-hmm. I think that, so I'm really hopeful. And I think that we have to really work together to get there and bring technology together, but really kind of fold in some of the science, the natural-based solutions in particular. Like, we know we're not going to hit the emissions goal. No country is on track for Paris.
Right.
And companies at some level are moving a little faster than governments. Mm-hmm. So I'm really encouraged by that. But cumulatively, we're not going to make it.
Right.
It's likely. So that's why I think there's a pivot back to natural-based solutions, and you're starting to see that sort of the trees or agriculture or oceans.
Right. I want to open it up very quickly and see if we can take 1 or 2 questions from here before we move on to our next panel. Yes.
I would be very interested with Larry Fink's letter to the CEOs and his comments about voting against board directors who are not sufficiently informed. in sustainability, we've all often had the centre of expertise working across the business and the executive level, and sometimes it hasn't necessarily been seen. We're talking about moving from corporate affairs to procurement, which is fascinating. What do you see is the route to educate the non-executive directors and the boards to be putting more pressure on the executives to move faster?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. At ABI, sustainability is our business. We do see the impact of climate change in our sourcing regions, right? In terms of crop loss, in terms of drought or disease. We see the magnified stress in watersheds around the world. So for us, it's so real that our board of directors have been truly involved and interested in the topic. So my role and my team's role is to try and collect the data, build some predictive analysis for the board so that we can actually show a future outlook. We can say, here's the North Star, this is where we're heading, but if we don't get there, here are the implications, and here's how we should allocate resources or really think about, what are some of our strategic decisions moving forward. But at our company, our CEO, Carlos Brito, gets it, and our board of directors as well. And maybe that's not the case for every company. I think you just need to think about, why sustainability makes business sense for me as a business. And if you can answer that question, then I think you can create really sustainable projects and work streams for everyone that would also benefit your supply chain and your communities just by default, right? So yeah, I agree with your comments that all of us are here this week because we know that the cost of inaction is greater than the cost of action, right? So I think we're all here. I know that there's a huge call to action for a decade of delivery and a decisive decade, but I also I would like to think that we are providing reasons to believe and proofs of concepts as some of the companies are coming forward and saying, hey, I am doing this in so many countries in so many ways, and here are the use cases for some of the new technologies that are coming out, right? So we have a lot of reasons to believe. I think it's time to come together and accelerate some of that change, and I think that's where finance community can really help us.
So on that positive note, we're going to wrap up. Thank you so much, Ezgi and Suzanne. Thank you very much for your time.